Hey, welcome to the Runaways podcast. My name is Cody. This week we're going to talk about some predictions for Amsterdam, which is like almost here. I know a bunch of people are showing up for New Jersey this weekend as well to try and get in some last second practice or maybe hide their decks. We'll see what happens this weekend as there is a realm event going on. But today, to talk about that, I am joined, and it's been a while, from Pat has joined us with some new glasses and a new haircut. Looking good. How has your practice been going? Because yesterday unfortunately might have changed the deck that you were playing inadvertently, but
No, it wasn't inadvertently. I knew that it was a long shot. I wanted to be playing the Leviathan deck that Ethan had been touting in the stream, but I think that it's just, I don't know. It's a little rough. But I have been doing very well with it. But I think the deck is still very good. But probably will not end up on that deck to be unless something drastic changes in the next 24 hours. But
that is one of those decks where when Ethan plays it, it just seems to be a different deck than when
exactly.
other people play it.
When Naive plays a deck, it's just like, completely different.
Yeah, it's it like baits you into being like, I can do that too, and then you play it, and you're like, why does it not do any of those things?
No, I love that. Ethan, he's just a master Leviathan player. So
Yeah, we have said many times that if he was not doing coverage, that he would probably win some of these majors, especially some of the ones where Levi has been very good. Um, his skill level in CC is just phenomenal. I mean, that was seen at Worlds when he actually got to play. His CC record was insane. It was just a draft tripped him up at Worlds last time. But so everyone is safe. The fact that he does broadcasting. So, but joined with me this week is Dan. Dan, you were a sad boy last week.
I was.
Are you still a sad boy this week?
Sad. Yeah, I'm doing better though. Yeah, I apologize for some of the language I used last week. I was in a pretty bad place mentally. Doing better this week. I realized last week I was like firmly in stage 2 of grief, which is anger. This week I'm in stage 4, which is depression, but I think I'm close to acceptance. So I'm doing a lot better. Um, more of the mindset of it is what it is, and I'm gonna make the best of it.
Yeah, I mean that's how it works. We get on here, we just give our thoughts at the time,
Yeah.
which is something that I think we'll continue to do. I had fun last week. Some people had fun last week, but this week we are going to be talking about predictions for Amsterdam, which we are all going to, along with like a good amount of the team actually. Will be making the trip overseas, which is great to see. I will start off by saying, man, this is the worst prepped I've been for an event ever. And that is not because I haven't put in a bunch of games. I've put in a bunch of games on a bunch of decks. Unfortunately, I still don't know what I'm playing. So maybe at the end of this episode, I can figure it out because I am running out of time. There's a chance I bring a deck to New Jersey that I'm not even going to be playing. Not because I have not because I'm trying to hide anything, but because I'm trying to play it at that event to even see if I want to bring it. And I might just be like, and pivot off to another deck. So I'm between like 3 right now. But what are our thoughts going into Amsterdam? We know that there's the big bad, which is Zen. Do we really think Zen, even with the changes, are still showing up in like super big numbers again?
I do. I think for most Zen lists, the ban wasn't that big of an impact. Like a lot of them were playing 3 to 6 copies of bonds, right? Like obviously for like the 9 bonds gang, and I know some teams are playing with the surging line, like those decks are just dead. But no, I think most decks they probably just put in some Bittering Thorns or I don't know, anything with Go again, and now their Art of War turns are better. I think people pretty quickly realize that he's still very strong. I do kind of think LSS might have done what they intended, which was like making more of a glass cannon. I think that was successful. Like I think he still feels terrible to play against if you don't have disruption. Like you just get ran over, like guaranteed, and very quickly too. Don't attack him; you just lose if you do. But against like the disruptive deck now, he feels way more glass cannony because you lost all these 3 blocks. Like I cut 15 3 blocks from my deck post ban. Like that's most of the 3 blocks.
that's a lot.
Yeah. I forgot the point. Yeah, but he's still very strong. I think he's still like pretty clearly the best deck, at least the best linear deck. I would maybe argue that New is like a stronger deck, but she has more polarized matchups, right? Like that's her issue. Like if Zen had like actual bad matchups, not just like if New draws a good sequence, you get looped. I think less people would play him, but it's an aggro deck, right? So if you draw well in this game, you're just gonna keep running them over, and like there's nothing you can do, right?
Yeah.
So yeah, I think it'll be the top deck, probably. Not definitely.
Definitely the percentage will go down from what it would have been had no bans come down, obviously. But I think that I agree with Dan. The deck is still very strong. At the end of the day, like there's tons of variance in this game, and if your opponent just misses on at hand without disruption, and you decide to attack into the armor, like you can just take 50, like in one turn. Like it's still possible even without like the triple bonds turns that you can have. Like it still requires a little bit more setup, but the deck is very punishing whenever you miss on disruption, and the damage output that it can do has gone down, but it certainly is still above what most decks can do.
Yeah, I agree. I think New is not New, but I think Zen is a very strong hero when he gets the chance to play the game. And when he doesn't play the game, you wonder why you're even playing this deck to begin with.
I wonder why I'm playing Flesh and Blood.
But I've been on both sides. I've been on sides where it's just like, I am gonna lose this game, and then you just draw double Art of War, and they just throw like something that doesn't matter, and you're like, oh, never mind, I won. And I've been on the opposite side where they just have disruption every round, and you just are just a bad Fi deck at that point. Which is saying something because Fi's pretty bad. So what we have seen though is in reaction to Zen, we saw New and Victor both become way more prevalent. Do we still think that New and Victor are going to hold roughly the same, maybe play rate, maybe go up in some aspects? Where do we see? We can start with Victor. Where do we see Victor going into Pro Tour here? Noting that it does have a good Azalea matchup, it does have a good Zen matchup, and Enigmas probably shouldn't be played. There will be some Enigma there, but it really shouldn't be there based on how the meta works. Trust me, to be fair, I wouldn't be surprised if Enigma shows up in top 8s because it's a big event and that's all possible. It's just like your chances of top 8ing are very low if you're bringing Enigma. But if it was playable, I'd be bringing it. But where do we think Victor kind of fits in moving forward into Pro Tour?
I really like Victor as a deck. I had posited a while back when Lucas was still playing it a bunch that we should put some more time into it, but it certainly has great defensive resources. Like, and you kind of have to win some clashes, but I mean, like, you should be winning most of your classes against most of the decks in the format. But those big defensive resources are huge in like like basically every match. It's just so powerful to just basically get a free 7-point card every couple hands, and the ability to like lead into some of these powerful disruption attacks. Like, you're not as bad as like old Bravo used to be with like some of the disruption attacks, but you still have your spinal crushes. You still have, if you want like crush the weak and things like that, like you have the ability to like choke slam, all these relatively super annoying attacks for decks to not be able to handle. I would say that Victor's probably will be like probably the 4th most represented deck, and that it'll probably be like Zen, New, Azalea, then probably Victor in that order. That's my thought. That's my prediction, but that's where I think he's positioned right now.
I honestly forgot there were other decks besides Zen and New. I don't know what else is up there. Yeah, I have no idea like how to predict the play rate for Victor. He's kind of a wild card, right? Like if it was the 3rd or 4th most, I wouldn't be shocked. If it was the like 8th or 9th, I would also not be shocked. So I don't know. Depends on what people feel like doing.
I think Victor has a little bit of stuff going for him in the aspect of like a lot of these like fringier or less played decks, he just kind of beats up on them. Like he just outvalues people that way and has good control. So if like Bolton or Riptide or those type of decks are trying to creep up and creep around, like he gets pretty good points into that. If there's some warriors trying to float around, he can get some good points into that as well. And so I think that's pretty valuable. The real issue is that the KO matchup, right? Like that the KO matchup is just kind of unbearable to play as Victor for the most part. And Prism is not very good either unless you're running like heavy tech for it, and even then it's still not great. So those are kind of scary. But it's a Pro Tour. People like Guardian. It's the only Guardian that's playable. Like I wouldn't be super surprised, like you said, if its play rate is a lot higher than we have over here in the US, right? For example, walking around.
Is it the play rate for overseas like Guardians more? I don't know if that's a true statement.
Yeah, especially with like 3-pitch, not 3-pitch.
Blue pitch.
Blue pitch. Yeah, there we go. Yeah, especially like blue pitch. They showed up at the last Pro Tour with some Victor in that format as well. I think is good. A lot of them have been playing new recently, but there's always a possibility that some of them switch back to Victor. They were very good on that deck. But that's also when we saw Victor do well, was not at US Nats, for example. It was all of the Nats that weren't here. Now that might be a product of they had more time to adjust, right? So that's always possible. But from all the results we got Victor wise, it really wasn't anything here, and it was all overseas as well. So I'd not be surprised if some people who did well in their nationals with Victor are bringing that to Pro Tour, for example. And then
I do think it's one of those. Sorry.
No, go ahead.
I do think his Zen matchup is like one of those where both decks think they're unfavored for both players.
I don't know. Not when I talk to these Victor players.
Oh, really? Okay, the ones I talk to think Zen is still favored.
Funny. I will say then there's New. New is my biggest question mark, I think, going into Amsterdam. Is it going to be the most played deck? Is it going to fall off a cliff? Like, I could legitimately show up to Pro Tour and they told me 35% of the field is New, and I'd be like, makes sense. They could show up
see higher even.
And I could see higher even. Or I could show up and they'd be like, 10% of the field is New, and it'd be like, makes sense. Like, both of those answers to me makes perfect sense. And it's because like the matchup spread feels bad for New. But then if you look at Talishar data, it's the most played deck with the highest win percentage at the same time, which is
Mystic cards are kind of good. Who would have thought blue cards that are better than most red cards are a little pushed?
So I think New worries me a little bit on the show up, especially the people who put in like 2 months, 3 months of work into New, showing up super teched, ready to go with all the matchups down because they've had plenty of time to do so, and it's a control deck. And I think its matchup into Zen got much better, with the changes to bonds as well. Anything else that you guys feel differently about New?
I don't think 10% is possible. I would be shocked at 10%.
Okay.
A little too low.
10 is probably too low, but
maybe
20 I could see. Like,
decks are there.
I think New will probably be the second most represented. But if there's so many different heroes in the game that like 20% could still be the second most represented tech.
Yeah.
So
yeah. True. I don't know if we're gonna have a consolidation on decks going into this Pro Tour or not. I feel like we're not. I feel like we're gonna have a lot of pet decks come out as a possibility.
Oh yeah, I'm curious if these 9 pummel every hero in the game deck show up.
like the Reinhards, like every deck that can run pummel.
Yeah, like literally every hero, man. Olympia, Reinhardt, Betsy, whatever you want to do. Just Kano, slam 9 pummel, and you have a decent Zen matchup.
I mean,
or winnable Zen matchup, I should say.
Kanos are going crazy. They're pitch stacking Zens all of a sudden.
No?
I keep running into them, and I'm just like, okay.
Can't beat them, block them.
Can't beat them, block them. Okay, and then we could talk about Azalea, who did not put up any results, basically, for national season. Still, though, on Talishar, it is, I think, the fourth most played deck that there is. Even with Victor has about 10,000 games, and Azalea has about 10,000 games as well. played this month so far. Azalea feels like it's an interesting spot for me because the Zen matchup, while it should be good, still feels like a coin flip for some reason. The KO match is like a coin flip for as well. Maybe unfavored into that. The Victor matchup, not great either. The new matchup depends on who you talk to. I talk to Azaleas and they're like, I just beat up News. And then I talk to News and they're like, this is one of my best matchups. It's like the same with like
I need not yeah.
as well. Its Enigma matchup I think is favored as well for Azalea. And then a decent amount of the lower tier heroes that we don't expect. Not that they're not good, but like Mechanologists or Riptide to some degree, Bolton, etc., are all kind of don't really want to play against Azalea most of the time. But where do we think this hero is going to fall? Because honestly, besides the high play rate on Talishar, and it doesn't even feel that high. I don't play against a lot of Azaleas on there. I haven't heard like anyone talk about Azalea lately.
Yeah, it's hard to say. I feel like she gained a ton of popularity like last qualifier season, right?
Mhm.
Or maybe 2 ago. And I think she seemed pretty popular at nationals, but I don't know that translates to Pro Tour.
Yeah.
My instinct says she will be like top 4 most played deck. She feels reasonable to switch to if like you weren't feeling Zen post ban. Just kind of doing like if you do your thing well, it's usually enough to win the game, and you can kind of ignore your opponent unless they play weakest link, and then you cry.
Change based on who your opponent is. Like that's the one thing about Azalea that you're that I agree with you a lot. Like that the way that she approaches every match, it doesn't matter what your opponent's doing. Like it's just like, did I draw the pups and the one arrow? Great. Did I not? Okay. Block, I guess, and hope to find a better spot. But she's still very powerful. Like, and she's doing above rate things and being able to have dominated super powerful keyword that a lot of decks can't beat. I think that she'll be very well represented at the Pro Tour.
Yeah, I think the better an Azalea will do is dependent on how many Azaleas show up. That mirror match scene is almost probably one of the least skillful mirrors I've ever seen in the game. That's not an insult to anyone who's been playing Azalea a lot. It's just like it's just how that mirror is. It's just red and pumps and very few real decisions that exist in that matchup. It feels like the most 50-50 I've seen like mirrors. A lot of mirrors you can get edges in, and it just feels like that one you can't get a lot or barely any. And so it feels like if Azaleas have to play against other Azaleas, they can't determine if they're going to win the game or not. Like take that versus like even like a Zen mirror feels like it has more decision points in it. But like Oldhim mirrors were like very skillful back in the day. So like, as like an example for good mirrors, but Azalea just doesn't feel that way at all. And so I wonder if that's kind of something, my theory is that's been holding Azalea back is the high play rate of Azalea causes more mirrors, and the mirrors are 50-50. So the good players who are winning the other matches can't actually get an edge in the mirror. So they're just taking losses into the mirror, which is causing them not to be able to top. I think that would, make a little bit of sense because Azalea is too powerful, I think, for its showing that it's had recently.
Like
could be.
Next, is talking about decks everyone forgot about. KO. Where'd this deck go?
Yeah, I think KO's great. Like, I think KO could be a top 3 deck. Doesn't feel like he will be, but I don't know, man. I think KO's like super reasonable.
Everyone forgot about this deck. This deck gone. Like this deck got second at US.
It's not flashy anymore. It's like, oh, buy token every turn. Who wants a free damage? That's lame.
Who wants consistent damage every round? Ugh.
Yeah.
Gross. It's just weird. It's just like KO was a monster. KO got more stuff, and then KO did well at US Nats. But like KO's just no one cares about KO. No one wants to play KO. I expect him to still show up though, right?
I mean, I assume that will still be played. Like he doesn't have bad matchups. That's like I equate KO to like Jund in Magic. Like you're always live in every match to play, and that's like the appeal to play KO. Like if you just want to know that I will be live to win any game that I sit down against my opponent. We saw Andrew Rothmel like do very well with KO. I don't think that there's any reason to expect that there won't be, a bunch of KOs. If it was in the top 5 decks, I would also not be surprised. It's just, consistent. It does what it's supposed to do. Like, all of its blues are amazing, and you have access to Savage Sash now, which you didn't before. Strong.
I think the lack of KOs shows like a balance. I don't want to say problem, like balance situation that we currently have. I feel like KO is currently like the baseline for power to be a playable deck. And that's just absurd compared to like 3 months ago, right? Like these Mistveil heroes are just so powerful. And I'm interested to see if the next set we're going to push or start at the KO level and go up, or if we're going to do
Give me
some
my Rune
bans
Blade.
after.
Give it to me. I need my Rune Blade again. It's been so long.
I'm just
give
so
it to me.
curious. I feel like we're at a crossroads where like we're leaving some heroes in the dust, and maybe that's okay, or maybe they're gonna dial it back again.
Yeah, it's so a perfect example of that was at like the LA where like we were all playing hatchets, and like that deck has just kind of been eclipsed since the power level of Mistveil. It literally like probably loses to Zen and Enigma, and then like can probably still lose to New in some spots. But like it's just so funny because that deck like has kind of disappeared like off the face of the earth. And if you would have told me that, I would have just been like, oh, there's no way that a whole one set could completely invalidate this strategy. But it did basically. What happened, but like when you're comparing like KO decks like KO and hatchets to these new powerful decks, it's like, is that a good thing? I don't know. I really like that the sets are powered. Whenever we had like the bright lights meta and like all the cards were like very low powered, like it was like, okay, now we're trying to block, and I liked this format when we had more aggression. Aggression was like needing to come out of the woodwork and be the best deck. So that's why I was really excited to play Zen at Nationals, and like I really want that to be the direction that we're going. It's more powerful decks than aggressive decks, defensive decks.
I think it's dangerous though. Just like if you look at these decks, like the requirements to be this powerful is to have like 6 codexes in your deck. Like look at New, like Levels of Enlightenment, Codex, I don't know, Bonds, Prognosis. That's maybe too far. Oh, Siren's Call. Like these new decks are so pushed because they have like 3 to 6 cards that are just like pushed way beyond a normal Flesh and Blood card, or slightly beyond. I'm exaggerating. And I think they have to keep doing that to maintain that power, and that's when you see like maybe constant bans coming in, and who knows. But I'm here for it. Like, we'll see what happens.
Yeah, new heroes are good. It's funny that we ever brought hatchets to a major after we've been testing this set. I had the bright idea like 4 days ago. I was like, wait, maybe I can play hatchets. And then I played like 2 games, and I was like, what am I doing with my life? And like threw it away again. But there was a good 10 minutes that I thought I'd crack the format again. And I was like, I figured it out. Let's do it. And then I played a couple of games and said, oh no, gold main estate means I can't beat Victor anymore. Because we used to actually win that matchup. Like with a lot of practice and like really knowing how to play that matchup, you could win it as hatchets. It's just you can't now with gold main estate. That was like I matched into a Victor. I was like, oh, I'm doing great. I'm like 20 health up. Everything's going to plan. And then he's just like gold main estate, gold main estate, gold main estate. Okay, yeah, never mind. I'm out.
That's a really good point, though. They have been catching up heroes with the expansion slot in that regard. Like that's why Victor's playable now, right? I think.
Yeah, gold main estate is insane. The card is great.
And if they keep doing that, then they can kind of control like who gets left behind for the season and who doesn't, which is nice.
Yep. I mean, we have seen Dash jump back up, and we can talk about that next. Dash kind of emerged as like a counter to Zen in some way, and then just kind of stuck around because it was preying on like Kanos, it was preying on enigmas that used to exist, and then it has just kind of like a bunch of middling matchups. 2, right? Prism 2, yep. And then it also has like a bunch of middling matchups where it's just like kind of flipping a coin against, or maybe it's like a little under. Do we still think that Dash is going to show up? Because I don't know. I'm a little iffy on this one.
I want to say only the like long time mech players will bring dash, and they'll feel good about it, which is good. I'm not expecting a large amount of people to. I could see, like, I think it's a reasonable way if you're like frustrated at Zen's power and you're just like, I'm over this. I'm just gonna boost until he's gone. Like, that
Gonna
seems
play some
reasonable. Yeah,
It feels like
his
if
stuff.
you're bringing mech, you're just assuming new is not as popular as it seems. Like that's kind of like the guess that you're making.
Can
Yeah.
like a
No, that's
pistol
hard.
package beat new? Like, is it even possible to assemble like a pistol package to beat new? Like,
Speaking from
Very
0
hard.
reps of the matchup,
with none. Yeah, I also know
I would
Yeah.
I would think you have to go fast to win that game.
to go fast.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I think if you go slow, New's just gonna like outvalue and pick you apart.
Yeah, I mean, if you could get a couple of pistol pieces down and then block with 2 cards and hold 2 cards, then like I could see it. It just seems dubious to be able to get your pistol pieces down in that matchup.
Sure.
Agreed.
But might be possible. Not something I've personally tested a lot of.
Yeah, we should just ask the people. Let us know if that
Yeah.
matchup is solvable.
They would know better than us if if pistol dash can beat new or not.
I'll ask
If so,
Connor. Really, Molly.
yeah, true. I know we'll have some Dash IO. Dash IO has been popular. I know Mara has been leading the charge on that. The deck's been good, and I've seen even just locally and other places that people are starting to pick that deck up when I travel around PA. So I think some of the Dromai people have moved over to Dash IO now, and it does powerful things. It's a fun deck to play. It's very complicated on certain lines as well. So I would expect a very small tangent of that to exist.
Yeah.
The next one's Enigma, and I personally it will show up. There will 100% be Enigmas there, and if an Enigma top 8'd, I would not be like, oh no, how did this possibly happen? I'd be like, okay, there's the one that got good matchups. Like, but I really don't think you should bring Enigma to this event. Like, it is so dangerous. Like, your Zen matchup still not good. Your Azalea matchup still not good. Your other matchups are now playable. Like, I think your new is good. Your Victor is good. Your KO match can be dubious. For the most part, it's good, but you can still lose that one as well. Your mech matchup is pretty terrible as well. So if any of those show up, you get pretty sad. Your Riptide matchup is playable, but not great. Your Prism matchup, both people think they're 100% favored, and your Kano matchup, both players think everyone is favored. So those are the couple of skill matchups. But man, I would be very surprised to see a big Enigma presence at this event.
But you played Enigma at U.S. Nationals. What was like the draw for you to play it at Nationals? And like, what does that translate into what people were into the Pro Tour, or as the new meta kind of left it in the dust?
Well, I think I said this a couple of times about Nationals. Was like, one, I really like playing Enigma. Like, I just really like playing Enigma. I thought I could get some edges on the fact that people would be a little unprepared properly to how to play into Enigma. Also, I thought it was probably my only chance to play Enigma at like a major, because I didn't think there's any way I was going to be playing it at Pro Tour because of Zen. The Zen matchups are so bad that if Zen is popular at all, you're just having like a 0%er. And then the Azalea matchup really tough as well. But that was mainly it. I fell in love with the deck for the first time in a while, and it felt like my only real chance to play it where I wasn't just sacking, $50,000, right? Like, so I still feel like super happy that I brought it because I love playing the deck. If I could play it at Pro Tour, I would be so happy. It just feels like I can't travel across seas to a Pro Tour and realistically bring that, hoping that I dodge, Zens all day, right? Anything else on Enigma?
I think the deck is certainly powerful in some matchups, and Manifestation is a good card, but I think that the fact that like all of the Enigmas that we saw do relatively well were the Guardian impersonators, like that kind of shows like the deck can't really act on the access that it probably intended to. So I agree with you that I would be surprised to see a lot of Enigmas at the Pro Tour.
It's so depressing because like I'll build Enigma ward, like heavy ward. And you'll play some games and you're like, this is the most broken deck in the game because like everything just lines up perfectly and you're just like smash, 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 and then they swing into you and you're like, I don't care, blow up my board. I'll just naturally block for 8 on that turn, and then let me smash you again. And it just like the deck feels unstoppable. And then you draw the other half of the deck in another game and you're like, my deck does nothing, literally nothing. And like that's the issue with playing like the heavy ward version. And then if you just play like the blockout version, then you're just like most of your turns are just under rate and you're hoping that your Mirage guy is good enough to like carry you through a game. And newsflash, it really isn't most of the time. And then if you just don't see Mirage guy, you just like auto lose the game. And you're like, this is the saddest day as well. So but it's nutty. Like I could see like an Enigma show up with like a heavy ward list, hit a bunch of Zen or other matchups and win because they just have the nuts draw. Because the nuts draw is crazy for Enigma, especially with some of these spicy lists that I've been seeing and I've been playing. Like I've beat Zen with no 2 for 6s in my deck, just all ward. And it's just like, but I drew like the absolute crazy nuts open and they didn't double Art of War me, so it was fine. But like, I'm just like, here's 25 damage. Like I have an Enigma and here's 25 damage. And like, you can do stuff like that. It's just really rare and not a realistic thing to be able to replicate over and over again. And it requires you to run a bunch of junk in the deck as well. I saw a lot of people excited about Riptide. I tested a decent amount of Riptide going into this event as well. What do we think of this deck in the current meta?
I think Riptide is, bad Lexi, but bad Lexi is still pretty good sometimes. Like, the trap, like package, like basically like the list that I've seen now are kind of just like, I have 55 cards and then I pick the 5 traps that I want to play into like the matchups. I think that's like the most popular version of the deck that I've seen. I think it's very like reasonable. It's probably, very middling, but it doesn't have like a ton of bad deck. I guess like Kano, you could probably never beat Kano and stuff like that. But like
Victor,
other than that, like you're probably playing every game, right? Mm-hmm. And you have very powerful cards in like Collapsing Trap that can like win games and Buzzsaw Trap that can win games on their own whenever they line up. I guess that's probably the thing that would pull people towards the deck hero. But I don't know. I don't really like Ranger. So
I just think it's hard to justify him over Azalea for like the Pro Tour specifically.
How so?
Just like, in terms of power, like it's the same card pool. I don't know all of his matchups, but I guess for like Zen, you're kind of attacking in the same way with like
they play pretty differently. Like Azalea goes like more tall, and he goes more wide most of the time. I mean, he still has some tall stuff that he can do, but he at least threatens to like go a couple attacks.
Sure, but you're just presenting like disruptive on hits or like powerful on hits, right? And then he's got a couple traps that just like potentially wreck your turn. But Azalea has cards that say you don't get to play your turn. Like surely that's what you want to be doing, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean,
but I respect Riptide. I think he's strong.
Yeah, I like Riptide. My issue with Riptide is like so many of his matchups are like flipping a coin. And it's not 100% Riptide's fault, and it's not even that the matchups are bad. Technically, I think if you could order your draws so that you drew like an arrow and a pump and a trap, like in most of your hands, I think you actually win like a huge percentage of your games. The issue is like that's just not realistic. And since you're playing traps, pumps, and arrows, and sometimes you're playing other spicier tech cards as well in Riptide, you'll just get hands that are like pump, 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 arrow in like the middle of the game when you're both just trading 2-card hands back and forth. And now you have to be the person who doesn't trade a 2-card hand back and forth. And like, you just can't do that when you're like playing against KO and stuff. And you're like, here's my 7. And they're like, here's my 8. And then you're just like doing this back and forth. But like, then you draw that hand and they're just like, slap, slap, slap. And then you're just like, I guess I take it all. And then you throw the arrow and then they're just like, here's 1 card. I'll go down low and then I'll hit you back with 3. But since you took 15 on the turn before, like you have to give me 3 cards out of your hand and the game's like over. And you just can't get out of that. And that's been like most of my losses when I'm playing Riptide is like in the later part of the game, you just draw that and lose. I will say he does have the opposite where if you can draw your 1 of trap, there's like so many matchups that just blows open. Like a Buzzsaw trap on a good Azalea turn, and the match just immediately flips. Like, and it's just like so scary. If you're the Azalea player, every single round you're like, no Buzzsaw trap, no Buzzsaw trap, no Buzzsaw trap, because you're like
Even
back in-
Tarpit Trap's pretty sick too, right?
Yeah, it's good if you have to go again, like on a Bolton or whatever. It's like,
Yeah.
it's like one of those things where if you're playing snappies and like you throw an arrow for like 8 or 11 and they're just like no blocks, like you never snaps, even if you have something to play afterwards, because Tar Pit Trap just blows you out. So you're just like, you just take your guaranteed damage and set a card. Which is like some of the ways to play around it. It's just like really funny, like how often you're playing into the deck and it's just like the 1-for-1 traps just blow you out. And like, so if I had a little bit better control over what my hand texture looked like, I would be very happy to play Riptide. I think it's pretty interesting. And it has some unique avenues, and it has some of that like gotcha game states where your opponent has to go to 2, and now you're just like, I just block until I find traps, and then I win the game. Like, is like a reasonable out that you can have. So I think it's interesting. I think the deck is the best it's ever been. And I would not be surprised if people showed up. And I wouldn't be surprised if it does well in CC either. It's just, it has to win a lot of coin flips, and that's the part that, you know, makes me nervous about the deck. I guess we have to talk about Prism. Prism has been a little quiet. I haven't heard a lot about Prism lately. We had a Prism that topped. We had a couple of Prisms that did that. A lot of Prisms topped nationals, actually. They had really good conversion from play rate to top 8 rate. They just didn't really do anything after top 8. But where do we kind of think Prism sits right now?
I would say that Prism is one of those decks that the more people disrespect it, the better it is. Like kind of like old dredge decks from Magic. Like if you're willing to donate, you know, some sideboard slots to put some of those 7 power attacks in your deck that kind of get you out of jail against Prism, and you can have one card get you out of the turn, you will usually do fine. Like, and we respected it at US Nash. We played the 3 blanches, and like I didn't lose to any Prisms that I played. I played 2 of them and beat them both, but it was on the power of the sideboard cards. Like, but if you like forget about it and just, you know, I can beat it with just 3 CNCs. You're probably not, like, you know. So I don't know. I think that we're probably at a point right now where if people are like going to forget about it, I could very easily see it doing very well and make top 8 for sure. But it's doing very powerful things, and permanents are extremely difficult to deal with in the right deck.
Yeah, it was an interesting point, because I think every deck in the format is playing 6s, even if they used to not.
Yeah, I know.
Which like sometimes that's enough.
It's like, yeah,
huge difference. Yep. So I'm not sure. Like, what are you targeting with Prism? Like, I think your point is probably the best reason to bring it is like, I do think it's like slept on now. But are you targeting like the Kanos?
Kano. Your
Like
Zen matchup should be a little
not that
better.
many of them.
Your Azalea match is playable. It has a lot of matchups that are like playable. Okay. Your Victor you're targeting is good as well.
Oh,
that one's been a lot more popular. You're really, the only thing you're really upset about is like Mac coming back is like a really big upset for Prism, and the KO match is still just a really dumb match. It's just it's just a really dumb match to play. Everything else is kind of fine, right? Like, and has a lot of skill, I think, expression in those other matchups. It's just those 2 matchups are brutal.
Makes sense. Yeah, probably depends how confident you feel going into Zen after the ban.
I feel like it'll be a small play rate deck, but I would not be surprised to see like a handful of Prisms do well, especially on like day 1, and see them, you know, going into day 2, assuming they get through the drafts. But like, I could see them do well in CC. That's typically how Prism works. Also, to your point that you were making, is I think people have taken the 7s out of their deck to fit more of these 6s in, and I think that just makes people incredibly weak to Prism currently.
I think the Zens especially, not even just that, just like practice-wise, like they're kind of scrambling with these new builds. Like Prism's not usually the first thing you go to test, and it's like a very different game you have to play. So yeah, I could see Prism being a good like dark horse pick.
Yeah, and I don't know if this is just how it's been going, but these wild prisms, they are doing some crazy stuff with their helmets. They are just lately they have just been snapping these helmets off as quick as they possibly can and to play it. And it's been really interesting to see the evolution of the helmet usage to try in some of these fast matchups where you're like, oh, they're gonna save it for this, and they're like turn 0, smash helmet, like let's go. I have a plan of what I'm doing, like, and you're just like, okay, like, and it's not just been like one game; it's been several of my Prism games where their helmet is broken on 0 or 1 quite often, depending on what.
I think it's reasonable though.
Yeah,
like with that especially, he's got so much armor that like you can stop their heralds from hitting for like 3 turns while attacking them. If you just cash in all the equipment, and like if they don't break helmet, they can't play the game.
Yeah, I mean, like to stop their soul generators, but like the problem, like when I'm playing against Prism and they still have their helmet up, like I'm just like terrified. Like it just like every turn, it just like
I just make him use it.
Yeah, I mean,
here's my bonds. Do you want to take it? Go ahead.
Yeah, but like you have these turns where you're like, I could go needle into the angel and just kill it for sure, right? No, I can't do that because I'll get shocked and die. Like they'll shoot themselves and blow me out. So like I just like have to like hope that they didn't want to block anyway. I mean, I don't know. Needle's very good against Prism in general, but like those are the problem turns where I just, man, I would love to just be able to just like take this out without having to worry about it. But every time that helmet is up, I'm just terrified. I'm just like,
no, it's fair. If you fall for one of their tricks, it's usually game losing. Like,
yeah, or worse.
You need to know your stuff. Like it's just a study matchup, right? You need to know what tricks they can do, and just don't play into them.
Yep.
Doesn't mean you win the game, but like if you play into them, you actually just like lose the game most of the time, especially if you're like an aggro deck.
Yeah, and same thing with them like searching up the -1 like to block a phantasm. Like there's just so many. That's why I always just like once the hat is gone, I'm like, okay, now you're playing fair flesh and blood again, and now I can kind of turn it back on and
yeah, and
play.
That's why I like to vote the banish.
That used to be how the matchups worked, right? Like you had to play around their helmet, around all of the different things. And I just thought it was interesting that I've been seeing a lot recently. Just I'm going to convert helmet for an immediate advantage at the beginning of the game, and then try and ride that snowball off. And it's been like a different adoption of how to play Prism lately. And I think it's because the meta's been faster. But certain matchups are just like, I want my value now, and I want to try and snowball this value immediately from the start of the game into a win, versus like try and get a trick
the pattern
later.
I see is the pattern I've been seeing is anytime their herald hits on the first turn, they're 100% of the time on your turn after that going to pitch to flip or pitch the hat, keep the 2 float, and then end of turn they'll flip into their angel, their erudition, and then they're like, this is going to be good enough.
Yep. Just been some things we've seen. Any other decks that you think are worth talking about leading into Pro Tour?
I mean, Kano.
Yeah, Kano. Yeah. Can't forget Kano. This deck is way underplayed in my opinion.
People start good enough at it. I honestly just think that it is like I think that is the one deck that I would love to be good at, but I know that it can't be. I truly think that its skill level, like its skill ceiling, is just like near impossible to hit. Like there are probably like 1 or 2 Kanos that like I'm like this person is going to play perfectly, and like but every other time I sit down against a Kano, I'm like, well, they can make a mistake or two, and maybe they'll win, maybe they won't, but like the deck is just impossible to play perfectly in the amount of time that we have to play Flesh and Blood, and that's why we don't see people play as much as it is. But they criminally, I agree.
I think people are just afraid of having 30 health.
Maybe.
I sure am.
I just don't think
you don't really 30 health because you gain 10 health from the Stump Shredders, so it's like you don't really have 30 health.
I'm just afraid that my off the tops are not going to be good enough. I just I don't like my luck. I don't think my luck is good enough to play Kano. But I do think the deck
pitch stack.
Yeah, just pitch stack. I do think the deck is very good. I do think more people, I think, if they took time to play it, would surprise themselves in their ability to play the deck. I think in most configurations, the deck is not as complicated to play as it's made out to be. However, in the situations where you have to find the win and it's esoteric line, it becomes infinitely harder than any other deck to play.
Like whenever you have these lines where you're having to like be like, well, if they have blue and a blue and a red here, or two blues, like what does this change, and like trying to extrapolate like the lines that you have to based on what you have to guess about your opponent's hand and trying to infer like what is still left. Those are the things that I think are near impossible to figure out.
Yep, I would say those are the harder parts, of playing the deck for sure. But yeah, I think we'll see a good tension of Kanos show up to play like we always do. And I would not be surprised if they do well. I think this meta is not that bad for Kano. Okay, any other decks? I think that's kind of all. I mean, we had the Bolton deck come out, but
let's predict the top 8.
It's whatever. Okay, predict the top 8.
Oh, right.
Dan just can't wait to give this prediction.
Awkward.
Okay, Dan, predict the top 8.
Oh, sure. Yeah. I think the top 8 will be 4 Zens, 3 new, and 1 deck that has 9 Pummels submitted.
I disagree with that. I think that it will be 2 Zen, 2 new, 1 Azalea, 1 Kato, 1 Prism, and a Victor. Is that too many? I just 2, the new and Zen, Kano, Victor, Azalea, Prism. That's my call.
I think it's good. I also think it's going to be probably like 3 Zen. I would not be surprised by. I think it'll probably be 2 new. That's 5 of mine, and it'll be like 1 Azalea, 1 Enigma is going to get in there for some reason because they're good at draft. And then the last one will be 1 KO. Will be in there. The Kanos will be close, but they can't draft, as Lucas says, so it'll be fine.
No Katsu in the top 8?
No Katsu.
You got a chance, right?
And I think that Zen number could be switched. It could be 2 Zen, 3 new, or 3 new. Like one of those.
It could be 8 new.
Yeah, 8 new. Yeah.
That'd be terrible.
It would be 8 new. What a see that would be.
What a world that would be in. Okay, cool. So this weekend we have a good amount of people who are going to be at New Jersey. So if you're at the New Jersey Realm Rumble, I think it is, make sure you come by, say hi, chat a little bit. I'll be out there playing. It's only like an hour away, so I'm like super pumped to go out there. And I think we have there's like people flying in, to get reps this weekend. Unfortunately, Dan, you're not going to be able to be there. You'll be away.
Flying out.
Yeah. Pat, are you going to be there?
I will not, could not swing it, but, with Amsterdam the following week, but I will be glued to the coverage.
Yeah.
Yeah, I'm excited to see what does well.
Yeah, I think this event, it feels like it's like a mini Pro Tour, even though it like really shouldn't be. It's like because the weekend before the pricing are as good, but like everyone's just like, I need reps. Let me get out there and get some live reps. So I'm excited to be out there. If anyone listening is out there wants to come chat, absolutely be available for that. Especially because it's going to be just it's a fun event with good pricing, right? Then after that, we're going to be at Amsterdam. We still don't know if there's an episode coming out next week, or what we're doing about that. Dan, do we have an idea of what we're doing for that?
We gotta do something. I feel like I would hate to miss a week. We still have all the people the forgotten episode, but it's recorded, so we didn't miss it. True. Yeah, I have no idea, man. Dude, I just can't wait to draft this set at Pro Tour.
Yep, that's gonna be exciting. So obviously, if you're out at Pro Tour and you see any of us, come say hi, come chat. We'd love to chat with you. Also, we'll have a token to give away. It is a new Zen State token. It is very cool. And maybe if Ethan is really nice to us, he could put it on the screen now. That would be super nice. If he doesn't, then he just hates me. That's fair too. Because I do make him edit all of these, which is like way below his pay grade, right? But let's also go over to one of our podcast questions for the week. Podcast questions are asked by premium members of our Discord. If you'd like to be able to ask questions on the podcast, view our monthly videos, or find people to practice with, or just ask questions of the team, feel free to join in the link below. Podcast question this week is going to be it's going to be from let's see, Ronco, and it's going to say, who's most nervous before a big event, and what do you do to help deal with it? I think this is a great question going into Amsterdam. What do you do with nerves?
That one I can answer. I have no idea who has the most nerves.
Who has nerves?
Before the yeah, we can start there. I really have no idea.
No idea.
I mean, I get nervous for draft. I love CC, but I'm always nervous every time I sit down to draft.
Yeah, I get like good nerves the day of, sometimes the night before, but it's like good. Yeah, I think the best way to deal with nerves are I guess one, before the event, do a lot of preparing, and then you will have less nerves. And two, channel the nerves like day of, especially into focus and like energy.
You know
How
what?
to do that? You just practice, I guess. I don't know. Do some meditation or something.
I will be the least nervous I've ever been for this event, because I've already written this event off because I don't have a deck picked out, and it's literally like next week, and I don't have a deck picked out yet. So who knows? I feel really good on draft, super confident in draft. But no idea for CC. I don't know. I get some nerves the day of. I usually get nerves never the night before. I just find that I'm just excited to play typically. And if I get nervous, then I tell myself that I'm excited to play. I think that helps a lot at recontextualizing the feeling internally. But then I get pretty nervous before the first game when we're sitting down doing the players meeting. I get some nerves there just because I want to know what I'm playing against. And I'm like, I want to start the tournament off decently, because the amount of majors that I've lost round one and had to climb my way back from is like too high. So it's like traumatizing. But most of the time it's just focus on, when you're nervous, you want to focus on something in your immediate vicinity, and focus on something that you're going to do as your next action, your next step. And then do some type of reassuring of comfortability, because you've been in this spot or you've done this thing before. So like if I'm sitting down to play a game and they flip over their hero and I get a little bit nervous, and it's like, instead of thinking about the game or thinking about the tournament or thinking about what comes after this, you're just thinking about, okay, what do I do next? I get my deck box out, and then it's like, I'm going to get my deck box out. I'm going to look for my hero. Okay. And then I got to decide how to sideboard. Okay. Let's focus on, how do I sideboard for this matchup? And you're just like very deliberately focusing on the exact thing you're trying to do in that one moment. And that's usually starts to like get into a groove of something that you've done a bunch of times, and kind of can get your mind away from worrying about what's going to happen moving forward.
Yeah, good tips. Routine always helps.
Yeah, kind of just distracting yourself to the point where you just like kind of fall back into muscle memory, and then you're not worried about that anymore, basically, because you're like, I have to play the game. Like, I agree that they definitely will come up, and nerves are a big part of playing competitively, which is great, because this is why we do it. Like, we're competing, and it's great. It's just like why I love Flesh and Blood and TCGs in general. It's just like you get to flex these competitive muscles, and sit down against your opponent and try to out skill them. I love playing cards in general, and to me that I will typically not really be nervous, just so excited to be there and just be playing any game. The fact that I can travel across the world to play cards is just such a win in general. Like, it doesn't matter if I do well, like I'm still enjoying whether I win or lose. Obviously I'd rather win, but it doesn't matter to me how I'd fare in the tournament.
Cool. Anything else on nerves?
I'm nervous thinking about nerves. This is how I operate.
I was nervous like a week ago, but now it's so close to the tournament and I don't have a deck yet that I'm so over it at this point.
Man.
Like
I think I'm like almost 10% as prepared as I was a week ago before they announced the ban.
Definitely.
So
I'm just gonna ship a funny list and It be what it be.
Yep. I'm just excited to play. I'm excited to go. I'm a little excited for the grind to be over for this season. Excited to look at the next set. Excited for Worlds and things that come forward as well. But if we don't talk to you before Amsterdam, because I don't know if another episode's coming out before Amsterdam. If we don't talk to you before then, come up, say hi at Amsterdam, get a token from someone on the Fabled Runaways team, which would be great. But other than that, I should probably find a deck. So I'm gonna go look at decks again, and I should find a deck that I want to play for Amsterdam. So goodbye, everybody.
Yeah, we're getting rid of the envelope here, but
What we could do here is go ahead and play the envelope.
All 3 pitches of Envelope and Darkness.